Tariffs have emerged as a key topic in economic discussions since Donald Trump's election victory. He employed them as both a negotiating strategy and a means to address a series of long-standing economic issues. His policy, inspired by 19th century economic nationalism, harks back to a time when tariffs were the defining trade policy of the United States. This policy supposedly kept income taxes at zero and shielded thriving industries. So could it work again today? This idea merits exploration, as tariffs might provide the fiscal flexibility needed to lower taxes while rejuvenating the nation's industrial base. Even economists who favor global trade admit that there are valid reasons for imposing tariffs. Large economies like India, Brazil, and China continue to apply tariffs in significant measures. However, the global economic landscape has changed dramatically since the U.S. last used tariffs of the magnitude currently being proposed. Today, American consumers are accustomed to affordable goods produced by complex global supply chains that rely on minimal trade barriers. Introducing new tariffs could create barriers, potentially forcing importers to raise prices to maintain profitability. Ultimately, this could mean tariffs are merely a disguised tax on consumers. Still, the industrial, employment, and strategic benefits of tariffs could justify a reduction in purchasing power. Of course, the debate over tariffs has become highly politicized, but ultimately, tariffs are just an economic tool. Much like a wrench, they're neither inherently good nor bad. They serve their purpose depending on the situation. A wrench is useful for tightening bolts, but not for performing brain surgery. Similarly, blanket statements about tariffs oversimplify their impact, as they lead to different trade-offs in various markets. Therefore, nuance is essential in this conversation. A tariff is essentially a tax imposed on imported goods, paid by the domestic business importing them. It's a form of protectionism or economic nationalism designed to make imported goods more expensive, which makes domestically produced goods relatively cheaper. This encourages the shift from imports to locally produced items, boosting domestic investment, employment, and industrial growth, while providing the government with additional revenue. The United States has a long history with tariffs. In fact, the second piece of legislation passed after the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1789 was a tariff. Alexander Hamilton, a key figure in shaping the nation's economic policies, believed that in order to achieve economic independence, the United States needed to develop its own manufacturing base. At the time, Europe had already industrialized, and the U.S. couldn't compete with European producers in a free market. To rectify this, tariffs were introduced to raise the price of European imports and encourage entrepreneurs to build industries within the U.S. By the late 19th century, tariffs made up 90% of federal revenue. This system worked to fuel industrial growth, but it also led to political tension. While the North industrialized, the agrarian South suffered from retaliatory tariffs on its exports, particularly agricultural products like cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. The debate over tariffs in the U.S. was contentious and remains so to this day. After World War II, the U.S. shifted its stance, embracing free trade as a global leader. Technological advancements in communication and transportation led to a specialization of economies, benefiting from comparative and absolute advantage. By 1995, the World Trade Organization formalized the trend of lower tariffs. Yet the imposition of tariffs on China in 2018 has revived the debate over their effectiveness. A key study on the impact of tariffs focused on the 2018 tariffs on washing machines. It revealed that importers passed the tariffs cost on to consumers, and domestic producers followed suit by increasing their prices. Interestingly, the price of dryers also went up, despite not being subject to a tariff because they're often sold alongside washing machines. This illustrates how tariffs can increase consumer prices more than the tariff itself, effectively functioning as a hidden tax. In total, the 2018 to 2019 tariffs imposed indirect taxes of around $80 billion on American consumers, one of the largest tax hikes in recent decades. The impact on job creation was also less than expected. While 1,800 jobs were added in domestic washing machine production, each job cost consumers an average of $800 to $15,000 annually, an inefficient way to create employment. The impact of tariffs can also hurt industries that rely on imported goods. For example, a 25% tariff on steel imports in 2018 increased costs for industries like automotive and construction, resulting in layoffs and a net reduction in manufacturing jobs. In this case, tariffs harm the broader economy rather than protecting it. Additionally, retaliatory tariffs imposed by other countries like China can exacerbate the problem. Ultimately, tariffs are still a useful economic tool, but they need to be applied precisely, not universally. Imposing tariffs on goods that cannot be produced domestically is counterproductive, as it simply increases costs without bringing back jobs. To minimize economic shock, tariffs should be introduced gradually, giving markets time to adjust. While tariffs can be a necessary tool in specific situations, such as protecting national security or securing critical industries, they must be carefully planned and targeted. As the world grows more interconnected and geopolitical tensions rise, protectionism may become more prevalent, but the economic costs of tariffs must always be weighed carefully.